Welcome to the Shaman Stories podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today with me is Charlene and Nicola. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about inner child work, and then eventually we'll talk about the program that both of you have coming up for people if they want to learn more. So welcome, Charlene, Nicola. If you want to just introduce yourselves real quick, and then we'll get started.
Well, good day, good day. Hello, Jeremy. Thank you for having me again on your podcast. Nicola Breath here, neuro shaman from the lineage of Kero, fire shamans, working a lot with developing this course, this school, 10-module school, Shaman Soul School, and meeting with you and my dear Charlene here to talk about the inner child healing today, which is a subject of very great importance for any and every human being, I feel. And well, yes, thank you. And let's just do a good job on this interview, this podcast.
I'm sure we will. And Charlene, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit for people who
Sure.
haven't met you?
So my name is Charlene Coscarelli, and I live in Chico, California. I am a transpersonal psychotherapist in private practice.
Nice. Oh, welcome. This is your first time on the show, so we'll dig in a little bit more on this stuff too. So I guess the real question to start with is, what is the inner child really, and how do you work with it?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What's the inner child? Well, for an adult which is in a need of looking at these woundings inflicted to us from in the first 7 years of our life, well, it's like a living memory. It's like a blueprint that holds our creativity, innocence, unmet needs, unresolved pains, and it's still a part of our psyche. So as said, it's shaped in the early years of our life, and it continues to influence us as an adult, and mostly shown in reactivity, and mostly shown in how we handle relationships. So the inner child healing is not about going backwards in time, but it's about, in a way, retrieving these parts of ourselves that were left behind and looking at them and reintegrating them into present state and addressing them with emotional qualities which we did not receive at the time when the woundings happened. So,
Interesting. Yeah, because I know with Rudolf Steiner, for example, he says that we go through a 7-year change every 7 years. So, age 1 to age 7, then age 8 to 14, 14 to 21, and depending on which age group you're in, kind of depends on your needs for the child itself. And so,
that resonates fine, Jeremy. There is another aspect of that which is also connected purely to our biology. Somebody says as well that every 7th year we are born anew, both our bone structures, our tissues, our nervous systems, everything gets kind of refreshed, born anew. So this is very right what you're bringing.
interesting. And so why do you consider inner child work, essential for healing and transformation? How would one know that their child is wounded and needs to be healed?
Oh, yeah, good question. Why is it so important? Because it is tied to the subconscious mind. And since I work a lot with neuroplasticity, looking at the patterns from the subconscious mind, which experts also say that most of the programming of the subconscious mind happens in the first 7 years of our lives. So looking at this, that the child is carrying this to adulthood. These are the core wounds which are then reflected in the adult life. in different ways. This could be shown as wounds of abandonment, of people pleasing, of perfectionism, of inability to say no. And when we look at these as a package, most of us adults, we carry these woundings, if not all of them, some of them. And these are also tightly tied to the shadow work, to the psychological shadow work. So these are the very core woundings which can show up later on in life and destroy our relationships. We get to hurt people that we love. And if we are not aware, if we not develop this awareness of that these parts need be addressed, it can easily be a very problematic and very difficult thing for ourselves, nevertheless, very hurtful thing for our surroundings.
And to kind of piggyback on what Nicholas said, all adults need inner child healing. There's not an adult that you see walking around that would not benefit from looking at these aspects of themselves.
And with these woundings, I mean, does it have to be a specific event? Can it be more of a perceived trauma? Does it have to be something grand? You know, like with, I'm trying to think of the best way to word it, but if that makes sense, where it's really, could the trauma be perceived or the wounding versus an actual event that actually happened?
Oh, very much so. It can be perceived, especially in the process of awakening the awareness, of becoming aware of the awareness. Because, another point of view, when we think about trauma, we often, when we re-speak that trauma, when we speak again of the same kind of trauma, we reframe the story, we add up on the story a bit each and every time. So we are changing this unconsciously, even as we speak about it, adding up on things. So this could really, in reality, be a good point that you're making. But nevertheless, most of these woundings, when we become aware of this awareness, can be looked at as neglect made by our parents, unmet emotional needs as children, maybe even, when kids live in their bubble, when they're emotionally safe and playful and creative. Everything is love, and the adult world is so reactive that a sudden change, sudden shift of somebody which is in charge of taking care of this child, parents, whomever that might be, the school, the society, can be very freezing into survival mechanism later on in adult life, and also very surprising for the child at the moment of when it's happening. So yes, very much that we can also perceive woundings which are not true, but nevertheless, the awareness of being aware makes these woundings visible, and then we get a chance to work on them, to heal them in adult life.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd like to answer to that a little bit as well, Jeremy. A lot of people hear the word trauma, like the big T trauma, and they think that they have to have memories like, oh my gosh, so many people are so much more traumatized. I had a good upbringing, so really psychological wounds on the part of an individual comes from misattunement from the parents. So it's not even that the parents are trying to do this or that the child by the visible eye is being mistreated by the parents. But once you become kind of aware of attunement on a very deep level, like how do I not over respond to the child? How do I not under respond to the child? So really, we benefit from inner child healing, not just from these big capital T traumas, but also, that day that I was sitting there playing with something and my mom was too busy because she had to work and she was, in her own world, and I just needed someone to pay attention to me. So it's these kind of more, if we don't remember any big traumas, it's these kind of just more misalignments, times in my childhood where I had a need that was not being fulfilled.
No, and I agree with that because I use the example a lot with people of, say there's a little girl, she's drawing a picture, her parents are in the kitchen fighting, and their fight could be just something mundane. Maybe the dad wrote a check and there was no money in the account, or someone spent money and a check bounced, something super mundane. It wasn't a big deal. The little girl goes to show the picture to the father or the mother, and they're in the heat of the moment of the argument, and they snap at the little girl, and she takes it to mean she's not good enough, or she's not worthy of the love, or she's not a good artist, or whatever you want to put onto that. And now there's that perceived trauma, even though it wasn't meant to be a trauma. And I find, at least for myself with kids, it's finding that balance where it's like, oh no, I screwed up. Let me go apologize, so they know that it wasn't about them in the moment. And that's the hardest thing for a parent to do, is realize the effect that they're having on their own kids at those moments.
And I think you make a really good point. It's that repair,
Yeah.
right? That allows the child, I think, to also understand that that adults are imperfect. And that the
Absolutely.
parent cares enough, because we're never going to be fully attuned to our partners, to anybody. We're never going to make that perfect attunement. And it's actually the failures in attunement and then attempts at repair that can really strengthen those bonds.
Absolutely. I think, and also it ties to that the notion that the children first 7 years of age, they're more responsive in comparison to the adults, which are more reactive, especially when the life kind of turns up the volume for whatever work, school, whatever we might have as a package, which can be stressful. And then, this sudden abruption when we are treating our children with love, or a child with love, and suddenly something happens, an adult makes a reaction, makes a decision which affects the child in a way that the child thinks, well, what now? Kind of, that's a reactivity against the responsivity, and this leaves an imprint. This is this attunement which Charlene is mentioning, which can be carried upon in later on in adult life, and shows an unmet need as unworthiness, and there's many of these things.
Interesting. And how would a person know, if their inner child, I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but what's a good way of looking inward to see if your inner child is actually wounded, or, calling out for help? And what's a good step that a person can take?
Oh, yeah. A great question, and this is seen in our adult life, the way we react. If we overreact, if we have, even as adults, we can have fears of abandonment. As adults, we can be people pleasers. We can be perfectionists. We can have an inability to say no. Well, these parts of us that feels invisible and unworthy, even when things are going well, and we get all reactive instead of responsive. So that was our inner child needing to be seen, which we didn't address.
And I think it can also show up in noticing people that perhaps are too trusting, or also people that have a hard time connecting with other people. So that's kind of two sides of the same coin, but you can also see it there.
And then, so coming from it from the shamanic perspective, a lot of that also sounds like soul loss as well. So do you find a lot of soul loss that needs to be worked on within this inner child work?
Absolutely, Jeremy. Absolutely, Jeremy. Your first question was tied to this. It is like a soul retrieval within this lifetime. So these fragments, these woundings, when honed into, when focused into, these needs to be drawn back into adulthood and need to be addressed, reintegrated, taken care of. Uh, and how do we take care of them? We take care of them by gentleness. We take care of them by patience, by allowing ourselves to step out the ancient survival mechanism and work on being from reactivity, becoming more responsive, and allowing this child to surrender to the moment. Well, not to say so that we are supposed to be immature, but to allow ourselves to play, to let this child express itself and show it the attention and the love and the emotion that was not given to it in the moment of the wounding.
And so, how would that process of integration look? Would you just kind of sit with that inner child, try to figure out what it needs, make not contracts, but like kind of do the give and take of seeing what exactly that inner part needs and then trying to give it to them? What would be the process?
Well, the process, I guess, would be figuring
Penny, do you
out.
want me to answer this?
Yeah, absolutely. Do that.
So the process of working with the inner child, there's lots of different ways to do that. One thing that you can do is just start journaling kind of as your idealized parent. Like if you were to imagine the best possible version of you, the traits of this person, really personify what that energy is about. And then you start and then you start journaling as your inner child, and then as that, trusted other. And in the beginning, the inner child may not even respond. So having done this work myself for many years, it really takes many years of starting that dialogue, and just like any relationship, creating trust that that at first the child may not respond and you're okay with that, and you really let it have whatever reactions it needs to have in the moment, and you're just present and available. It's just how you would start a relationship with anybody.
Okay, that makes sense. So, what are some, I guess, common myths about inner child work, misconceptions?
Common myths, misconceptions. Well, misconceptions are that if we get to that point that we are aware of the woundings and as adults begin working on them, well, that's exactly what's tied to Charlene's answer, previous question, that we need to address these things with trust and not rush ourselves into this process, because as patience is needed, surrender is needed in this process of healing and allowing this inner child to be kind of without judgment, without fixing, just presence. And misconceptions can be that we are able to fix these problems in a quick manner, as we can fix some other emotional issues, psychological issues, which appear to us in adult life as we go along. So realizing that we can be our own inner parents is the right way to see this. And misconceptions would be that we can be our own therapists in that way. So we, in a way, need to become our own parents for being able to heal this. And I think that guys guys' misconceptions are mostly that, well, somebody else than oneself is able to heal this inner child. So that job belongs to oneself, to the adult. So misconceptions probably are that people are not able to see that they can help themselves heal this inner child when it comes down to the fundament, you know.
Yes. And so, while it's really helpful to do this work with a therapist or a shaman, we don't always have that opportunity. And Nicola makes an excellent point. And a really good example of that is, say you are laying in bed and you don't want to get up, right? So, how do I start to create a narrative inside of myself that is reflective of how a good parent would treat their child as reflected by my inner voice? So basically, instead of laying there and being like, you have to get up, what's wrong with you? Look at all the things that you have to do. That voice would be like, how a good parent would talk to a child, like you're going to be happier, whatever that inner dialogue would be. But that's what you want to start is noticing how you're speaking to yourself and noticing just like a kid, if you're bossing a kid around and being, a jerk to them, they're probably not going to respond.
Okay. And trying to think of the best way to ask this one because it seems like there would only be one answer to it, but I want to double check because we mentioned the core woundings that someone can have over the first 7 years. Now, obviously, I think a person can have more than one wounding. So when you're doing the inner child work, is it just one inner child, or is there multiple parts of that child that you need to address?
Oh, well, that's a great question. And it could be that the woundings in the early age make a fracture so that this inner child, the child has created different personas without being conscious. And all this is imprinted in the subconscious mind. So that's a great point to make. Nevertheless, when we talk about these different core woundings, well, these can also be looked at the different aspects, personality aspects of ourselves later on in adult life. So, yes, very much, Jeremy. This can be looked at can be looked at, I'm not claiming it, as a multiple personality disorder as well in the adult life.
Okay. And with that, would you just try to focus on one at a time or just kind of just shoot
Yes, but
for?
multiple woundings,
Okay.
very much multiple woundings, neglect, trust, abandonment, guilt, and when we come down to the nitty-gritty, if we are true to ourselves, most of us carry more than one of these core woundings. And I don't know if there's only 4 or 6 or 8, but there's around a handful of these core woundings which we carry, which we then reflect in the adult life. And it could as well be that they're showing in our adult life as a fragmented or even multiple personality disorders.
And so, yes. And I'd also like to add for the people that don't identify as having a lot of trauma as a child, we have so many. There are so many different, because think of our parents. Our parents are not perfect. They have complexes. And so think of like any experience that you have in your life where you're aware of some kind of complex, like I can't respond this way when I'd like to. I have this problem. It's like energy gathers around these experiences. And if you can look at what behavior you're doing today that you don't like and kind of trace it back in your memory to an experience that you had in childhood, that's what, for myself, that's what I like to do. So it takes a degree of insight, right? These are my issues. Now, how can I trace that back to some earlier experiences I had, as a child?
That makes sense. And yeah, and it's also just being honest with yourself too of these are my issues. You're looking at them, but you're not placing blame because oh, it's all my parents' fault. They did this to me. Well, not necessarily. It could be the way you perceived it when it happened, and it really wasn't meant to be the way it was. You just took it that way. So taking
And it
ownership and
can be
responsibility. Oh yeah, and it could be too. Yeah.
and our parents had parents.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
everybody we see is walking around with different wounds or another, right? And so that misattunement between a parent and a child is so easy. Think of the world of adults, all the stuff that we have going on, and think of the world of a child. They're very, energetically very different. And so sometimes those are going to clash in ways that the kid just does not understand.
Absolutely. And I think it's worth mentioning there that it don't have to be our parents each and every time that we're inflicting these woundings. It
Mhm.
can be our older sisters and brothers. It can be our grandparents. It can even be somebody from the preschool, institutions where children begin to go as 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. Something can happen, some kind of a psychological scarring can happen, and imprint itself on the subconscious mind, which we then carry on. It's not always exclusively the parents.
Yeah. And with that, so we've touched on it. Trying to think of the best way to word it because we've kind of gone over childhood experiences and how it shapes the inner child. But is there anything more to that with it shaping the adult identity? Trying to think of
Well, I think we kind of mentioned this, in one of the previous questions. So we are either showing this in our adult life as overreactions when we are, well, let's say, for an example, when we are with our partners or even with our children as well. And these woundings can be reflecting themselves on our children. So we can be afflicting our old, unmet, unresolved woundings, reflecting them upon our children. They can be shown as fears of abandonment, in adult life. We can be together with a partner or with whomever in a relation and fearing this fear of abandonment. We can be people pleasers. We can even show this as perfectionism always, that our way of expressing ourselves needs to be in a certain amount of perfectionism, otherwise we are not satisfied with ourselves. Or maybe even the inability to say no to people. And this is tied to people pleasing as well. So that's around it.
Yeah,
These are the core
and
ones.
um, so like if we think of ourselves in a scenario and we perhaps react in a way that we don't like, the tendency is to go back and behave as that bad parent and be punitive to ourselves, be harsh, be blaming, right? So I'm at a grocery store the other day and all these people are having a great time and I'm in a bad mood and I don't respond the way that I wanted to respond. Well, I can kind of ask myself, like, what was going on in that moment? I was behaving very rigidly. And then I can kind of, instead of being like, what's wrong with you? Why are you this way? Why do you act the way that you do? You want to go back to those early experiences where perhaps a parent was very rigid and go to that younger self and and hold that self. Like Nicholas said, be very gentle with that self.
And with that, so it sounds like, I'm assuming you both have been working on your own inner child healing for a while now. It sounds like you definitely have, Charlene. Do you have like any personal turning points in your own life that happened during this work? Like something that truly shifted for you when you started doing this?
Well, if you want me to say, okay, well, turning points. I would say that when I became aware of the chance to be observant of my psyche, observant of my attitude, observant of my actions, reactions, responses, the analytical mind then started working. And my experiences were that I was able to see myself, to hone into these parts of myself which were either connected, tied to the abandonment wounds, to the neglect wounds, whatever wounding it was, and the reasoning was that when I realized it, it started with a little bit of shame and with a little bit of withdrawal from that. Well, hey, I realized that I've hurt other people, not just myself. I was not gentle to me. I was not gentle to other people. So the point for me was to start small, to begin to be curious again, about this part of myself which was wounded, which I really then realized it was a serious issue. So by not trying to fix this inner child, that was my experience, but just trying to reunite myself with this child and beginning to be creative and to allow myself to stay in presence, without perfection. And realizing as well that this work of healing the inner child, this is also a lifelong process. It's a relationship. It's not a quick fix. So it's just about being gentle, being kind, and being consistent, I would say. So that was my breaking point of realization that this was a lifelong process of being aware, observant, being gentle, staying consistent. And this was not a quick fix.
Hmm. And do you feel that it's by working on your inner child, your relationships maybe with your own family are improving?
Oh, absolutely so. And absolutely so, because by improving the relation with myself, I was able and am able to improve the relationships with the people around myself, with those who I love and those who I meet. Because it's all about being aware. It's all about being aware and not carrying these wounds as a wound, but carrying them as a reminder of that we are all due and worthy of joyousness, of happiness, of love, of compassion. By being able to treat myself back in that way, I was able to give more to the outside world, to those who I meet and live with.
Nice. And so with inner child healing, how does the role of the nervous system play out? Because you mentioned neuroplasticity, and how does that actually affect the nervous system? I'm assuming it's more of a fight or flight response, but does it cause other issues with the nervous system?
It's mostly connected to our survival mechanism, to, as you say, fight or flight. And this about staying small and powerless as adults, which we often do, adults do. We choose to stay in the safety zone, in the comfort zone. You're not even willing to live up to our inner dreams, hopes. And this is also tied to the nervous system. Like we're living in this ancient mechanism, and very much so. So how do we get to that point when we can process this trauma cognitively. So that it kind of this imprint which is laid even in the body, in the whole nervous system, not only the ancient mind, but in the whole body it can be laid, in the muscular system, in the nervous system overall, energetic centers. So it's not about talking about the past. It's about teaching the body and the mind how to feel safe again. And how do we do that? Regulating the nervous system, realigning it into safety again. We do it with, well, most simply with breath work, with light work, with some kind of sound stimulus, which can have a healing effect on us, with movements, with playing around, with again allowing yourself to let this inner child come out and express itself, and feel safe, even though we are adults. So trust is everything, I believe. So.
Yeah, like that. And I believe in that as well of, it's not just the spiritual side that we have to work on, it's the body, it's the mind. We have to hit all three aspects to truly release our imprints, release our trauma, and just get back to who we were supposed to be. And if we don't hit all three core areas, we're doing ourselves a disservice.
Absolutely, Jeremy. Absolutely resonant and absolutely important. Agreeing.
We need the physical, mental, spiritual,
Yep.
emotional, right? These are all aspects of being a human. And if we don't pay attention to all of them in some capacity, we're not going to be developed as fully as we would like to be.
And that's the challenge I see these days. And I know you work in this area more, but Western medicine really only goes into therapy, of talk therapy. It really doesn't go into the other stuff. It doesn't go into the body release, the somatic work, the breath work, the spiritual side. We don't really focus on any of that. We just want to talk about it. But talking alone doesn't fix the problem. 9 out of 10 times, I would say, it might show some helpful improvements, but it doesn't seem to do everything it should.
And that's why I'm so grateful that we have entheogens, that we have somatic work, that we have EMDR, we have brain spotting, internal family systems, shamanic work, breath work. I mean, the tools available to us are unlimited in terms of, what modality we want to use to heal whatever needs healing.
That's
Absolutely,
getting
I agree. We can put it down to this one beautiful word, becoming whole. When we address all these aspects that need be addressed, body, mind, spirit, however way we choose to address these, to get to feel this wholeness, completeness. So.
Yeah, it's just putting the information out there and showing people that these things work and, getting proof, I guess, is the best way to say it. I mean, I deal with veterans and first responders and just saying, hey, look, there's other ways to look at your PTSD and trauma. There's other ways we can work on it. I don't need you to talk about it all day. Let's work on, releasing it, letting it go, moving it on. Like these are the things we want to do. This will make you get back to that wholeness, like you mentioned.
Sure. And
Not to mention
absolutely.
nutrition.
Yeah, that's a whole. I put nutrition with the body for sure, but yeah, it's I guess that could be a fifth tier when you want to separate emotion and nutrition. But yeah, nutrition's a big one too. We're poisoning ourselves with everything we eat these days and drink.
And not just that, but what we look at.
Yep. Yeah.
What I consume, Nicola just had a post about this the other day. What I consume is literally all the things that my eyes take in. And think of all the garbage that we are on a daily basis being exposed to via our phones and our computers and social media. All of this becomes part of now how I think. We don't know the intentions of the people putting that information out there. We don't know, the accuracy of it and people take these things as truth, then they base so much of how they interact with their community based off of something that they saw, that happened to one person across the country. And now we're fearful that that's going to happen to us.
Yep.
Agreed. It's all about keeping the conscious mind engaged into other aspects of life, living, healing, than staying locked in the trauma. And then again, we are talking about getting over this survival mechanism, engaging with our new brain. Whatever way we get there, we need to address all these aspects of us, body, mind, spirit. So this is a very important thing. However we want to get there, we need to stay consciously engage into other things to be able to remove and work on all these traumatic things, including the inner child woundings.
Great. So you kind of touched on some of the practices with connecting and nurturing the inner child, but is there any other practices that a person should do, like maybe a daily practice, a meditation? You mentioned just kind of sitting with the child and communicating with it, journaling. Is there other things that a person should be doing?
Well, you see, I can only speak for myself and from my experience if I should give an advice. So I would advise start small. Be curious. Don't pressure yourself. Don't try to fix this broken child. Just meet with this child, reunite with this child. This is a very important, sacred part of yourself. And don't be perfect. Don't seek for perfection. Just stay present, maybe for a minute or two a day, because this is a lifelong relation. Once you realize that you got these wounded, very, very young parts of yourself, which are important for you to reintegrate as an adult, so that you don't go around wounding other people and, the worst case scenario, wounding your own children. So be gentle, be kind, and stay consistent. That's my advice.
So, and I would add to that, Jeremy, that to just a really kind of simple way to do it too is if you're, say, just doing a mundane chore, you could, like, say you're out like watering the garden, you can, or whenever you want to do it, you can just be like, I'm going to let my inner child out and just see what happens. Like, let yourself play. Right? Like that's how children learn, is through play. And as adults, we have so many responsibilities that we have to take care of. And just, when you can remember, be like, I'm going to let my inner child out for even just a few minutes and let yourself just, not take things. Yeah, let yourself play.
And clean up the mess afterwards. But
yeah,
I've seen what it's like when my 9-year-old goes out to play. Me picking up all my tools afterwards.
Yeah.
And I guess with that, is there a relationship of, creativity and the inner child? It sounds like there is.
Well, of course there is. And that's the whole point. This practice of, again, we are coming down to the nervous system, which is wounded, which is in this ancient mind. So it's all about, yes, changing from reactivity to responsivity. And that is being aware of our woundings, among others, the inner child woundings. So yeah, sure.
Yes. Then I guess,
And to add to that, our creativity is like the wild child, right? Like all of these, you can see it in a lack of vitality in people, right? Like children are so open and expressive. And like you were saying earlier, Nicola, they tell the truth, right? In safe spaces. And it's like, so when you notice that lack of vitality, all these ways that children are allowed to imagine.
Absolutely. This raw truth that the children are delivering, this is the most beautiful part, and when we now realize that we are not able to speak our raw truth as adults, well, that is the first sign that you're dealing with the inner child wounding. If you're not able to speak your truth properly, just being raw truth.
And I guess with that, so what advice would you give someone beginning this work, their inner child work, and they're starting to feel like overwhelmed, or it's not working, or they're not, you mentioned sometimes they won't communicate with you for a while until you build that relationship. What's some good advice someone can take while they're working?
Well, Jeremy, just no pressure. Be patient, as if you were parenting a child of your own physically. How would you treat your child? Would you be patient to your child? Would you be nurturing to your child? Would you play with your child? How would you treat your child? Treat the same child within you, which is wounded, in the same way, and even with more kindness if you're able, because this child didn't receive what it was due when it was young. So just be gentle, and it's not a quick fix. So stay consistent.
I guess with that, so how do you find that this inner child work, ties into what you do now as a healer or shamanic practitioner? Do you feel it's more impactful when working with clients? Do you feel it's more of an add-on, or is it more of an essential, we need to start here before we work on anything else?
It is an essential part of the healing work, but it all comes down to the individual client and how do we perceive ourselves, and what kind of communication, what kind of communicative channel can we attain, what can we see when we assess our clients working with. And if we can come to that point that we can see that these are the really predominant woundings, predominant things to be addressed as a therapy, whether it be shamanic, whether it be somatic, whatever, spiritual, it's foundational to all this true transformation. So it is always the inner child that holds the key to major transformations. So whether we address it first or second or third or fifth, it will be needed to be addressed to make a complete healing process whole. So it's in a way like the soul's original blueprint, this inner child. And if we don't heal this inner child enough to be able to see and work with it as adults and continue this healing process, we will seldomly touch authenticity, we will seldomly touch original creativity, and we will forget this wholeness. So it is essential. Whether it comes primarily, secondarily, it's a very essential part of any transformational healing.
And Jeremy, can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
Because you're the one who chose that you wanted to discuss inner child healing. So what in your path is bringing you to a point where this was a subject that you were interested in?
It's interesting. Well, I mean, I feel like I've done parts work before. I did something called the Landmark Forum. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they kind of do that process of look back at 3 core woundings that you had as a child, and those develop the stories that you then used, and then that affects the rest of your life. So based upon what happened, you made the story out of it, that was your wounding, and then that's how you react to the same situations for the rest of your life, essentially. And so I've had those look backs as a child. So with my childhood, I mean, it was like what the example given was, I thought everything was fine. I had a decent childhood. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but they tried to do their best with what they had, took care of us, tried to give us what we wanted, definitely gave us what we needed. Now, looking back as an adult now, it's like, okay, roof over our head, food on the table, clothes on our backs. Even if the clothes went on layaway 6 months before we got them, we had clothes on our back type of thing. But we were very disconnected. We weren't very close as a family. Both of my parents had to work all the time. My dad always worked different shifts, so you never knew what his schedule was going to be like that week. So it really left me to stay home alone and take care of my sister. So I became essentially the parent, even at a young age. So I didn't have that playful childhood, I guess is the right way to say it. You know what I mean? I feel like I did, but once I started having my own kids, I saw that disconnect of what I give them versus what I had and what I try to make
Well,
sure
then
they get.
it's all about playing now as an adult. And
Yeah.
now you got kids. Play around with your kids, play around with yourself, play around with other adults that like playing. That's the
Yeah,
medicine.
and definitely do that now.
Beautiful.
Took a little bit to
Cool.
get there, but yeah, it's the inner child work. I also kind of just tie it in together, I guess, with parts work,
Mm.
so that internal family systems work. But it's, trying to reconnect to that child and trying to figure out what I can give myself the best way possible.
Yeah, I love to just kind of do a check-in in the morning, like talking about parts work and then also inner child, just doing like a quick check-in, like how's everybody doing in there? And we can see so many of our wounds, I don't know about you guys, reflected back to us by the people in our environment.
Hmm.
And, it can be so helpful to take those experiences and learn, what part of me is wounded around how I experience other people. And that can be fascinating.
Yeah, what, why is that person triggering me in that way? What about them is really a reflection of myself that I just don't like?
Yeah, what part of me am I rejecting?
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes you just don't like a person because of the way they are, but usually there's something there. I try to judge a person based on the way they treat me versus based on anything else. But yeah, it's always looking at those reasons. Why does that person? Because we've all had those moments where we're at work, we're at a store, we're at a party, wherever, and we get introduced to someone, and it's like there's just something about that person that just truly irks you, and they've done nothing to you yet. And so, from the shamanic realm, it's like, well, is there a contract? Is there this? Is there that? Or is there just something about that person that reminds me of me that I just can't stand?
Hmm. Yeah.
Shadow work, frequency. It can be taken in many
Frequency,
ways.
sometimes it's just the frequency that certain people exist on. It just happens to be at a very different level than
Yeah, that too.
other people. And
Yes.
we exist that way for other people. Other people exist that way for us. I mean, it's, happening all over.
Yeah, and it can get confusing when you try to break it all down. It's like, what is it really? Is it this? Is it that? Is it me? Is it him? Is it her? And then sometimes you're just like, I just need to take a step back and just do my own thing and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Just drive myself crazy sometimes.
Yeah, we can analyze things. That's what I find so interesting as a therapist. Like my clients will often overanalyze things more than like sometimes the best analysis is just like, how do I get a calm, clear mind, which is hard to do. It takes many years of like practice, because that's what the mind wants to do is just constantly.
Well, and I guess with that, so how would you have a person get that calm mind when you're working with them? Do you just do breath work? Is it more of a meditation? Is it just kind of different depending on the person?
I mean, I can just speak for myself.
Hmm.
The way that I've achieved that is, um, first of all, cutting out toxic relationships. I meditated for about 10 years for an hour a day using binaural beats, and then mindfulness.
And I do want to give you time to talk about your program and everything too. I know, Nicola, you wanted to do a presentation.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. Okay, well, we are preparing a 10-module course called Shaman Soul School. Well, this course is based on three powerful pillars. And let's start up. The first one is neuroplasticity. And as we know, this is the ability of the mind to rewire itself and to create new potentials. The second pillar is based on the Kero shamanic fire lineage. And in simple words, this second pillar is carrying the medicine of earth, spirit, and the four winds. And then, in principle, inner child healing, because this covers both shadow work, this covers both our energetic awareness, because the truth is that most of us are just slightly taller versions of our younger selves, still waiting truly to be seen or heard, you know. And this ties a little bit to this, what you guys were talking about 2 minutes ago, that how sometimes when we meet people, we can get aggravated. But in principle, we are either seeing hidden parts of ourselves or something else, you know, there. But nevertheless, at Shaman Soul School, we will be walking through 10 transformational modules that speak differently to your soul. So in easy words, we will be using the medicine wheel as the core foundation of our teachings. And as we know, the three of us, we are shamans. The serpent teaches us to shed the past and to slide into freedom. So to say, you know, the jaguar is saying that we should walk without fear, be dancing in the dark, becoming fearless, knowing love. The hummingbird hums that we should drink only from the nectar of life. And then the eagle is calling us to fly higher than we ever dreamt was possible, creating visions for our societies, for the world, for ourselves at the very last end. So we will also be exploring shadow work. We will be doing a lot of fire ceremonies. We will be doing energetic medicine, emotional mastery, rewiring our brain at the same time by this repetition, by this ceremonial concept. And this art of building life will then be connected to us that we feel good within as we look on the outside. So, you know, this school's motto, so to say, is transformation, of course, alchemy of the body, mind, spirit. And in a way, my school, it refuses to take ourselves too seriously, because we mean that healing shouldn't be too serious. It should be involved laughter and real talk, and it should remind us who we always were. So if people crave more than knowledge, but initiation, if they want to trade burnout for spiritual confusion, if they want to practice embodied power and deep soul clarity, well, then this school might be something for them. And if they like their mysticism, served a little bit of fire, a little bit of science, and a whole lot of heart, well, then maybe this school could become their soul family. Nevertheless, enrollment for the school is open. The school is starting on the 1st of June. We run an offer which until the 15th of May, the enrollment fee is $666. After that, up to the starting date of the 1st of June, the price will be $888. So this is a course lasting 10 weeks, and it will involve a lot of healing, joy, and clarity, and, well, a feeling of a soul family gathering together. So I invite you all to, yeah, please.
Do you have the modules with you of what we'll be teaching in each module?
Well, yes, and this can be seen, this can be checked out at the Facebook group or the website which I'm running also for considering this school. It's the MunayKeyArts.com, or otherwise visit the Facebook group, The Beauty Way, and there is a lot of extra information because there you can get insights on everything. So visit MunayKeyArts.com or visit the group, The Beauty Way, on the Facebook, and you will get much more information in detail about the school, about the content of the modules, and you're more than welcome. So, yeah.
Nice. And with that, I'm assuming everything's online. I'm assuming you're going to have like a private group that people can get in and share what they're learning and all that good stuff as well.
Sure. This is only online. This is not a live school. We will be having 2 times 2 hours Zoom meetings on a closed portal a week. So 10 weeks, 40 hours of Zoom meetings, 40 hours of teachings, fun, ceremony, improvements, getting in touch with our soul's call, and yeah, enlightenment, so to say, getting out of the survival mechanism and learning to function firmly from the new brain. And so, thank you, Jeremy.
And with that, do they have to have any prior knowledge? Do they need to, is anything expected of them
No,
ahead of time?
everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome. This is a school open for everybody and anybody. We don't have any minimum or maximum standards, so everybody is welcome. Join in, check it out, MunayKeyArts.com or the Beauty Way FB group. Welcome to join in.
And what do you feel that they're going to have as an outcome when they finish your school?
Well, as an outcome, the feeling of the healing from within, so that this goodness of feeling from the inside can be shown on the outside. So these both aspects of us, can be healed. So lots of times people, let's say in simple words, they look good, they look nice, they look healthy, but within the healing has not been done. And one of the modules in the Shaman Soul School is called the Kingdom Within. And in this module, we are learning that our own healing and that the answers that we seek without are already within us. And this is a part that we take a very large time on, and we're focusing on that because this healing is found within. And this is what we call the inner kingdom in our concept of the Shaman Soul School.
And did you want to add anything to that, Charlene, or?
No.
Okay.
I am very busy in my job as a psychotherapist. Once the school starts, I've also initiated in 2 shamanic lineages. And so, I'll be teaching, and I look forward to being able to interact with people one-on-one and being able to teach these skills to people who benefit from it.
Nice. So I'll definitely put all the links and stuff in the show notes, but is there anything else you would want people to know in general or about the school or about inner child work before we start wrapping it up?
No, we're good. Cool.
And I think just like anything, what you put into it is what you get out of it.
Of course.
So we all need healing, and that's a job that is really, we have to take upon ourselves to start engaging in.
Agreed. Yeah, we need to start with ourselves before we even consider trying to fix other people or working on other people. That's the first thing we've learned in our own training is it starts with you. Fix yourself, and as you work on yourself, you'll notice that ripple of change happen to everybody around you. And I've seen it in my own life of when I started this work, went through my own initiation, built my own mesa, got my kuyas. my parents were never interested in any of it. And then suddenly it's like, oh, what are you doing over there? And then they're starting to shift their own perspective of things. They're starting to change how they look at stuff. My own kids are changing. Like we were taught, it's everything we do with ourselves changes 7 generations before and after us. So I would recommend everybody focus on yourself, look at schools like what you guys are presenting. It sounds like it's going to be a little intensive, but it's definitely an affordable thing that people can jump into and learn. And I have seen the outline of the different modules, and I do think it would be beneficial for people. And there's a lot to learn there, and there's a lot of information you
Absolutely,
guys have
absolutely.
given.
Yes, Jeremy, and this ties this healing of ourselves again tied to this module, the inner kingdom, which is all about us getting into ourselves to be able to see which parts of us needs healing, and also to explore this wonderful realm which is within us, both in our bodies, minds, souls, and this is a true start of healing. Then we can start radiating this healing towards others and offering healing to others. So that's empowerment.
All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna call it, and I appreciate you both coming on, and I hope people check out your school. I'm gonna get this posted as quickly as possible. That way they have a chance to sign up and get the discounted deadline if that's what they choose to.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for having us, Jeremy. Beautiful day to you and to your family, man.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Take care, Jeremy.
You too.
Thanks.
Ciao, ciao.